Hi, and welcome to the X22 Report. My name is Dave, and this is episode 533, and today's date is December 4th, 2014, and the title of this episode is U.S. Ambassador Agreement with Iraq that U.S. Forces Assured Immunity. What does that mean? Well, boots on the ground are now guaranteed in Iraq. Let's get right into the economic collapse news. Now, as we know, it is very, very difficult to get a job, especially here in the United States and especially out in Europe. We understand that Cyprus, Greece, Italy, Spain, France, and many other countries, their unemployment, their youth unemployment are skyrocketing. People are having a very difficult time finding work. And a lot of the youth of these countries are leaving the countries, looking elsewhere for jobs. In Spain, between 2008 and 2012, we see that about 700,000 young Spaniards left their country to look for jobs. They went to Colombia, Peru, Chile, all over the world looking for work. We're seeing the same thing in France. We're seeing the same thing in many of the countries. Even here in the United States, it is very, very hard to find work, and people are having a very difficult time. In the UK, we're seeing the housing market start to cool off right now. Latest official figures show that Britain's house price growth slowed again in the 3 months to November. Mortgage lender Halifax showed that prices rose by 8.2% compared with the same period last year, their smallest increase since February. And again, this is going to happen all across the globe. It's going to be a domino effect where everything starts to fall apart and collapse. Here in the United States, what are we seeing? Well, the initial jobless claim missed for the fourth week in a row after last week's jerk higher, now revised even higher to 314,000. This week saw a modest 17,000 drop to about 297,000, magically below the 300,000 line. And of course, this is what they always do. They always go back, they revise the numbers either lower or higher depending on where they want the numbers to come in, especially with initial jobless claims. They raise the number, so the new number that's coming in looks like it's much, much lower. When they want things to look even better, like GDP, what do? They revise the number very low, so the new number coming in looks really good. And they do this on an ongoing basis, and everything is manipulated. Unemployment is manipulated. GDP is manipulated. Inflation is manipulated. It's recalculated, manipulated, and changed because they need to keep the illusion alive that everything is absolutely fine. But we are seeing many more layoffs across the United States now. Wow Cable Telecom Company, 270 people. Freedom Communications, 100. Toyota in Australia, they're laying off 2,600 people. Huntsman Corp, 900. Activist PLC in Corona, 200. Swift Transportation, 180 people, 1,500 people coming to Illinois. And with the retail stores, it is not getting better. It is really getting worse. Right now, Sears is posting a $548 million loss. It plans to double the store closing in 2014. Pretty much Sears is going to be done after this holiday season. Aeropostale, who's continually closing stores, they decided during this holiday season they're going to close about 75 of their stores. So they're really not expecting a huge amount of sales coming in. And these retail stores, they are crossing their fingers, crossing their toes, hoping that this holiday season is good. And I'm going to tell you right now, we are not looking good whatsoever. And we know for a fact that the unemployment numbers are completely fake, phony, and false. Because if the unemployment numbers are this low right now, why did we have better sales when the unemployment was at 7, 8, 9%? It makes no sense. And we can see that the real economic indicators are showing us that these numbers are fake. People don't have good jobs, and if they do have a job, it is underemployment. And we can see right now that the retail market is losing their customer base. It's falling apart. And this is why these stores have decided to close down during the busiest season of the year. Now, out in Silicon Valley, it looks like the police are out there and they're clearing out, which is the largest homeless encampment in the United States. They're clearing it out. People have no place to live. They pretty much lost their homes, lost their jobs. They go to these 10 cities. They set them up. But of course, the corporate media keeps everything hidden. They don't want anyone to know that these people are living under bridges, living in fields, living in all different areas near streams so they can do their wash. And it's completely hidden. And the police are trying to clear them out and move them away. Just like in big cities where they have laws that are passed where you cannot feed the homeless. They're trying to move the homeless out of the city so no one realizes what's really going on in this country. And what's really going on is that people do not have work. People can't survive. People do not have homes. We saw this back in the Depression. And again, it's happening right now. Now, we understand with the real estate market that we are still having problems here. In spite of the sustained rally in home prices and, the Fed printing this money, giving it to hedge funds, investment companies, trying to lower the interest rates to get people into the real estate market to take out mortgages, out of everything that's been going on, even the Fed buying up the toxic real estate, what are we seeing? 4 million homeowners are still underwater. Total negative equity of about $157 billion. Underwater borrowers represent nearly $800 billion in unpaid balances and about $157 billion in negative equity. They are 10 times more likely to be delinquent than those with positive equity. So we can see right now we are heading into an area where things are really going to go bad and south really fast, because prior to 2008, people had work, they had their homes. Yes, they had second mortgages or equity line of credit on their homes. But right now what's happening is, even though the prices have gone up, they haven't gone up far enough, and people still have mortgages that are a lot more expensive than the houses. And when this market comes crashing down and they lose their jobs, they're just going to leave their homes. We saw this happen back in 2008, and this is going to be 10 times worse as we approach this point. Now, a really good index to let us know how the economy is doing is the Baltic Dry Index. And on December 3rd, 2014, the Baltic Dry Index fell to 1,079 points, down 40 points against the level of December 2nd. Now, the Baltic Dry Index is a number issued daily by the London-based Baltic Exchange, not restricted to Baltic Sea countries. The index provides an assessment of the price of moving the major raw materials by sea. The index is also seen as an efficient economic indicator of future economic growth and production. So if we look back in time, May 2008, the index reached its record high level since its introduction in 1985 at 11,793 points. Today, or yesterday, December 3rd, 2014, the Baltic Dry Index fell to 1,079 points, and it's continually dropping. This tells us that the future economic growth is not there whatsoever. They can manipulate all the numbers they want. This is one number which they cannot manipulate because this is raw material. It's not open to speculation. And right now, this is showing us that the future growth is pretty much done. And that means we are headed for a major, major collapse. Now, as we know, Obamacare, the sign-ups are going on right now, and of course, Obamacare, the administration lied to us once again that, premiums will not be going up, but of course they are, and we're also seeing that the number of Americans signing up for Obamacare coverage on healthcare.gov slowed significantly in the second week of the open enrollment season for the healthcare law. Just over 303,000 people chose plans on the website between November 22nd and November 28th, down from 462,000 who selected insurance coverage on the federal website during its first week. Now, we have to remember, most of these people that were signing up with healthcare.gov were forced to do so because their plans were canceled, and we're still seeing plans canceled right now. But what's very interesting is the Obama administration is finally admitting that yes, health insurance premiums are going to rise in 2015. Well, we already knew this. Even though he was out there continually saying that they're not going to rise, he finally had to cave in and say, yes, they are going to go up. And their suggestion is, well, cancel the plan you have on healthcare.gov and look for a better one. Well, of course, you know what happens here. This whole thing has been planned out. The U.S. government, the insurance companies got together. The insurance company wrote the insurance bill, which is the Affordable Care Act. Basically, they got together and said, listen, we will set levels of premiums. This way we can get everyone in on it. We will make a huge profit because we're going to set this very high, and we can all raise it at the same time each year. And who can complain? Nobody, because we can control the market. It's not an open, free market. And we need everyone into the Affordable Care Act. So what is the government going to do to allow this to happen? The government came up with penalties, taxes, to force people into this, to force businesses to get the people into Obamacare. And this is exactly what's going on. And we're going to see premiums rise every single year because it's not an open, free market. Look at the auto industry right now. It's mandatory. You must have auto insurance. When you go and you price out auto insurance, all the premiums are pretty much the same. They're really not that different. The same thing with health insurance. They're all going to be the same. And you canceling your plan on healthcare.gov, looking for something else, you're going to find the same premium. Maybe you'll see it, $4 or $5 cheaper or something like that. But pretty much the price is the price because it is a fixed market. Now, we understand that Obama has pretty much granted amnesty to all the illegal immigrants, and right now it looks like 17 states are going to sue the Obama administration, claiming immigration action is illegal. Texas is leading a coalition of 17 states in suing President Obama over his plan for immigration reform. The lawsuit argues that his executive action violated the United States Constitution. Filed in a Texas federal court, the suit claims the Obama administration violated constitutional limits on presidential powers when President Obama ordered the protection from deportation and the right to work for up to 5 million undocumented parents of U.S. citizens so long as they come forward and pay taxes. In the lawsuit, which raises 3 objections, Abbott cites Article 2, Section 3 of the Constitution, which states the president shall take care that the laws be faithfully executed. Abbott said the lawsuit asked the court to require Obama to go through Congress before enforcing laws, rather than making them up himself. The White House has said the executive order falls within the presidential powers and has argued that the ultimate answer is for Congress to pass meaningful immigration reform. So it looks like he created this executive order, told certain agencies like DHS, the Border Patrol, to not deport the people if they're coming over illegally. And it looks like it's a power play to get Congress to vote on something where it says, okay, all these illegal immigrants are now legal, but it looks like Congress is heading in a reverse direction where they're going to say, no, whatever the president just did is null and void. But it seems like DHS already had a heads up, and basically what they were doing is they opened up job openings, about 1,000 of them, before the president even signed the executive order. So it seems like they already knew that this was coming down the line. Of course, we all knew this, and they already set everything up, and basically these new positions right now have salaries of about $157,000 a year, according to the job posting listed on the official federal jobs website. And there's about 1,000 positions opened. And we can see right now they're preparing for this. They're getting ready. And they already know exactly what they were going to do, because they knew the president was going to sign the executive action. But he waited, of course, until after the elections because he knew the people did not want this. The polls showed that they did not want this. The corporations, the central bankers, they wanted the illegal immigrants to come on over because the corporations saw that, we can bypass the Affordable Care Act law, bring them onto our workforce, and we are not penalized whatsoever. And as they stay in the country longer and they become citizens, we can just let them go and take the next batch of illegals on. And we can see this is definitely how it's going to work out. And everyone benefits from this except for the people of the United States. The government benefits because eventually they will go onto Obamacare, they'll pay taxes, revenue will be coming in. The corporations benefit because they don't have to pay that penalty. But again, the taxpayers here in the United States are flipping the bill, because we have to remember they had to set up all these sites where they're going to keep the illegals. They're hiring these people. More salaries are going out. And we can see right now that this is going to cost upward of about $2 trillion. And the number of dollars coming in from paying these illegals paying their taxes is not going to be $2 trillion, because they're getting the low paying positions. Now, it looks like the House of Representatives, I believe they just passed the NDAA, and in the NDAA this time, it seems like they are cutting the pay for the troops. They are basically slowing the growth in housing allowances, and they're going to increase the co-pays for most of their prescriptions. So the troops are getting screwed by this. They're getting lower pay, less benefits, and in this 1,648-page NDAA agreement clears about $577 billion in spending for fiscal 2015, including nearly $496 billion for base Pentagon programs, about $64 billion for U.S. combat operations, including an estimated $5 billion for the anti-Islamic State mission in Iraq and Syria, which the United States created, is controlling. So basically they're receiving money to pay for the Free Syrian Army. They're receiving money to pay for helping the Islamic State get Assad out of power, and basically all the taxpayers, all the people here in the United States is paying for this, because this is what the central bankers want. What is also included in the NDAA is a land grab provision. According to Ted Cruz, the extraneous land grab provision in the NDAA include 250,000 acres of new wilderness designations, 400,000 acres withdrawn from the productive use for energy mining timber, 15 new national park units or park expansions, 8 new studies for national parks, 3 new wild and scenic river designations, 3 new studies for additional designations. The federal government already owns an estimated 640 million acres of land, more than 1/3 of the entire country, because as we know, this is the collateral for all the money we owe other countries like China, Russia, because they hold our debt, so they need to take more and more of this land. The NDAA agreement includes close to 100 natural resources provisions from across the nation, including 8 Nevada public land provisions that have been prioritized for Senate Majority Leader Harry Reid. And remember with Cliven Bundy, how they wanted to take his land? Well, it seems like they're including these provisions in the NDAA so they can go ahead and take it, because it is law right now. And basically, Harry Reid, and with this NDAA, they're saying this will spur economic development and enhance national security to the National Defense Authorization Act, and it will help the people in Nevada. Well, every time they do something, it never helps the people, it helps themselves. And we can see right now they will use this to help themselves once again. Now, out in South Sudan, we understand that China now is maneuvering more military soldiers into this area. They're trying to protect their oil investments in that area. We understand that United States government, the central bankers, are also in Sudan. And right now, the U.S. on Wednesday warned South Sudan's foreign minister that United Nations sanctions could be the punishment for people who stand in the way of that country achieving peace after a year of conflict. UN Ambassador Samantha Power, a Deputy Ambassador David Pressman, emphasized that the U.S. is working on a Security Council draft resolution that would authorize sanctions against individuals who threaten South Sudan's peace and security, a U.S. official said. So we can see right now they're trying to get China out of the area. They want the natural resources in that area. And of course, China is not just going to fold and let this happen. And this is why they're bringing in troops to protect this area. Now, as we know, the United States wants to get into Nigeria. They've been trying. They've been doing everything they possibly can. They're using Boko Haram, this terrorist organization. And right now it looks like the Nigerian government pretty much kicked the United States out and is looking to other nations to come in and help with the battle against Boko Haram. And right now it seems like the Boko Haram, which is controlled by the United States government, central bankers, CIA, and other nations, they had them attack a French-owned cement factory on Thursday in Nigeria. Who knows, maybe France will come in there. They're already in Mali and Tunisia. Maybe they will bring troops into there, and finally the United States can somehow get into Nigeria with France being already in there, and this could be a play to do this. Now, out in Ukraine, the self-proclaimed Lugansk people, they are ready to supply coal to Ukraine. We have very big reserves of coal. Our storage facilities are full. We are ready to sell it. We have enough coal not only for our republic, but for the entire country of Ukraine. And Ukraine is out there saying, well, we're not planning to buy that coal. We want to take it from the storehouses. This coal belongs to Ukraine, and we do not have to purchase it. So right now we have two things going on here. The southeastern people had a referendum. They are separate and apart from Ukraine. Ukraine says no, they are not separate and apart. They're still part of Ukraine, and that is our coal. And of course the people in the southeastern section are saying no, we will sell you the coal. And this is why we're having fighting continually going on, because they'll never ever decide on anything. And we have to remember, these central bankers, the U.S. government, didn't get what they paid for. They paid for the entire country, and they haven't received it. Now, companies and businesses in eastern Ukraine will stop paying taxes to Ukraine budget once Kiev imposes economic blockade on Donbass. So basically what's going to happen, they're waiting for Poroshenko to introduce a blockade, and they're saying once this happens, all the taxes we're paying to Ukraine, we're going to pay to the Republic of Donetsk instead. And they're saying that the economic blockade imposed by Ukrainian President Petro Poroshenko against the self-proclaimed Donetsk People's Republic will have a negative effect on Ukraine itself. They're saying that they will not get the revenue by doing this. We will turn our revenue towards the Republic, and they will get absolutely nothing. So this will definitely backfire on Poroshenko, and we're going to have to watch this very closely and see where this goes. Now, it looks like Kiev has made a decision to create a Ministry of Information. And this is a clear threat to media freedom in Ukraine. A lot of the media organization journalists are out there saying this is absolutely ridiculous. Basically, what they're doing is they're going to control the flow of information. We have it here in the United States. They control it through the corporate media. The government tells them what to put on the news. They follow it. It is scripted, and we see it all over the country where all the newscasters say pretty much the same exact thing. The same thing is happening in Ukraine. They want to control the flow of information. They want to put out the propaganda that they want to put out. They don't want journalists doing independent research and finding out what's really going on there. And right now, Ukraine is angry. The journalists are angry, but it looks like Poroshenko and the ministry has moved forward in doing this, and they will create this Ministry of Information, and it was already approved by the Parliament on Tuesday. Now, Kiev right now is allowing foreign individuals into the country, and they're letting them join the government. Ukraine's parliament appointed a new pro-Western government that includes a U.S.-born finance minister to take on the job of the staving off the financial collapse, overhauling the shrinking economy, and ending the armed conflict in the country's east. So basically what's happening is the central bankers said, listen, we need our people inside your government. We need to take control of the situation. And of course, Poroshenko said, no problem. We will give all these people dual citizenship. They'll come in and they can sit on the government. The new cabinet includes Finance Minister Natalie Jaresko, the chief executive of private equity fund and a former U.S. diplomat, as well as two other non-natives. Shortly before the voting in Kiev, President Poroshenko signed a decree granting Ukrainian citizenship to the three foreign-born candidates. And it's very hard to understand why this is happening. Of course, the people in Ukraine are angry. They don't understand why foreign people are coming in and infiltrating their government. But we have to understand, the U.S. government, the central bankers have control of Ukraine. They haven't got what they paid for, and they're trying to take control of what is going on there, and they're pretty much putting in a full, complete puppet government. And the people are out there saying, we don't understand why 300 coalition members and 40 million people in the country, 10 minister candidates, couldn't be found who'd be Ukrainian citizens or at least ethnic Ukrainians. And it doesn't make sense to the people, but we see why this is happening right now. Now, we understand that the Donetsk people have continually gone to Ukraine asking for a ceasefire. Kiev never responded. The fighting continued in the airport region of Donetsk. And now all of a sudden Poroshenko came out and said, we need a day of silence. And this ceasefire will happen on December 9th. Like he is the one who suggested all of this. Poroshenko has announced a day of silence in eastern Ukraine to start from December 9th. The move is aimed to secure previous ceasefire agreements. The leaders of the People's Donetsk and Lugansk republics have said they are eager to accept the move suggested by Kiev, but doubt government forces will observe the ceasefire. And we've seen this time and time again, where Poroshenko comes out, says there's a ceasefire. All you need to do is lay down your weapons, surrender to us, and everything will be fine. And of course, the southeastern section's not going to do this, but let's see how he proceeds with this and see where he goes. And we'll have to watch this because we know there is something else that he's going to bring up that they have to abide by, and we'll have to watch this very carefully. Now, the international organization have confirmed the reports contained in the Russian White Book listing the human rights violation by Kiev troops in eastern Ukraine. For the first time, Human Rights Watch clearly recognized that Ukrainian military are using multiple launch missile systems and banned weapons against civilians in Donbass. Now, we've seen this in many different places. Every time the U.S. government, the central bankers are involved, it seems like they use all different types of ways of trying to put down the other people. We see it in Israel. We see it in all the countries that the United States government has taken over. Look in Syria. The rebels have used sarin gas, chlorine gas, you name it. They have been doing horrific things there. And we can see right now that the same thing is happening in Ukraine. Whenever the U.S. government central bankers come into power, they put in a puppet government, or they're trying to get power and overthrow a government. They use any means at their disposal, and they push it really hard. And we can see right now that the Human Rights Watch is now recognizing that, yes, there are violations, and we're going to look into it. Now, U.S. Secretary of State John Kerry says Russia has isolated itself internationally through its actions in Ukraine. But we have to look at these actions that he's talking about. So basically, the United States came into Ukraine. They had a coup d'etat. They spent about $5 billion. They already had the puppet government people picked out to replace the elected government in Ukraine. The coup happened, and then all of a sudden those areas inside the country who didn't want to go along with the puppet government, they were called terrorists. And then all of a sudden Crimea had a referendum and they voted themselves away from Ukraine. Then the southeastern section said, we want to do the same thing. And all of a sudden those people were called terrorists, and they had to create an anti-terrorism force to go after those people. Because you have to remember, during the coup d'etat, they said these people want democracy, freedom, the government needs to listen to them. Well, the same thing is happening in the southeastern region. The people are speaking. They have a referendum. The people in Crimea had a referendum. They're speaking out. They want democracy. They want their freedom from the puppet regime. But guess what? The U.S. government, they don't want to hear that. They're already in power. So we can see right now that the United States is pushing the agenda. Then the Ukrainian government decides to shoot down a Malaysian airline. And of course the U.S. government and Ukraine blame it on Russia. And then eventually what has happened, they decided to remove that story that Russia really wasn't involved. And they try to hamper the investigation. They have a secret pact where they keep the information private about the MH17 downing. And if any one of the countries wants to come out with the information, the other countries can veto, and everything will stay secret. And John Kerry was out there saying the only way Russia can rebuild international credibility is by stopping its support for pro-Russian forces in Ukraine and helping to end the crisis there. And we can see right now, we know this is not going to happen. We know for a fact there's no Russian buildup on the border. Their troops are not inside Ukraine. The United States used the Open Sky Treaty. Russia allowed them to fly in there. Take a look. They had 96 hours to take pictures and investigate the situation. And of course, they've never shown us proof. NATO is always out there telling us that, yes, all these troops are in there. The tanks are in there. And we have to remember Ukraine bought these T-72 tanks from Hungary. And they bought quite a bit of of them, and they're using this as the false flag to show that Russia is actually in there. But besides that, they have no satellite images, and I'm not talking about those black and white ones from 1970 that they keep showing us. Where are they full-colored 3D close-up pictures of all this you're talking about? If it was true, they'd be plastered all over the corporate media. You would see them everywhere. But since they do not have them, they have no proof, and they're just using words to try to convince everyone. Now, Russia is bringing their northern fleet of warships and auxiliary vessels led by submarines, and they are entering the Mediterranean Sea through the Straits of Gibraltar. The naval convoy is preparing for a full task drill as part of Russian Naval Task Force, acting regularly in the Mediterranean Sea. So it looks like they're flexing their muscles in this area because they see what's happening with Syria. We understand there's a naval base that Russia has on the coast of Syria, and we can see they're just flexing their muscles at this point in time. Now, as we know, military assets are being moved all over the world. They are containing Russia. They are containing the Chinese. They have them in the Middle East. They have them in Africa. And we understand there was a bill introduced into the House of Representatives, which pretty much is a resolution against Russia. The U.S. House of Representatives have overwhelmingly approved a document which strongly condemns Moscow's actions against its neighbors, calling them a policy of aggression. It passed with about 411 to 10 votes. The resolution slams Russia's continuing political, economic, and military aggression against Ukraine, Georgia, Moldova, and the continuing violation of their sovereignty, independence, and territorial integrity. The U.S., Europe, and our allies must aggressively keep the pressure on Mr. Putin to encourage him to change his behavior. This is coming from Representative Adam Kinzinger, the resolution's sponsor. The resolution calls for Russia to stop supporting local militias in eastern Ukraine and for the cancellation of Crimea's decision to join Russia. In addition, it calls on Moscow to withdraw its troops, which the U.S. claims are in Ukraine, Georgia, and Moldova. The House calls on President Obama to provide Ukraine with defense equipment and training. The resolution also urges NATO members and U.S. allies to suspend military cooperation with Russia. Basically, at this point, we can see we are on the path to World War III. It has begun. And we can see already they are moving and trying to provoke Russia into doing something eventually. And if they do not do it, basically what will happen is they will create a false flag to make it look like Russia did something so we can go to war. And this has been planned, and they are getting ready for this to go forward full steam. Now, out in Saudi Arabia, it looks like they're going to stop financial aid to Yemen, because what's happening there, as we know, within the Middle East, that the people there are rising up, they're taking back their countries, and Saudi Arabia is saying, listen, the puppet government is being pushed out. We are no longer giving aid to this country at this time. Now, out in Turkey, U.S. Embassy warns of potential attack in southeast Turkey. The U.S. Embassy said on Wednesday it had received reports that extremist groups may be planning an attack against a Syrian opposition group in the southeastern Turkish city, and it did not specify who might be targeted. The Western-backed body, the U.S. Embassy, has received reports that the extremist group may be planning an attack against the Syrian interim government building. The statement said, "We remind U.S. citizens that the situation in southeast Turkey, while usually calm, can change without warning, and U.S. citizens should avoid traveling in areas close to the Syrian border." Now, we have two things going on in Turkey. Turkey has made agreements with Russia to bring the South Stream pipeline into their country. We also understand that Turkey supports the Islamic State, and we can see right now they might be setting up for a false flag event to make it look like the Syrian government attacked Turkey and went ahead and attacked the Syrian government building, the Syrian opposition building, I should say. And we can see that they could be planning something right now, and these warnings are coming out, and we have to watch this very, very carefully to make sure and understand that this could be a false flag. Turkey tried this once before, where they had their troops go across the border. They brought missile launchers with them. They went into Syria, Erdogan wanted them to fire the missiles back into Turkey, and he wanted to say that Syria was attacking. And what happened was this was posted on YouTube. Someone recorded him. It was put on Twitter. And this is when Erdogan tried to ban social media in the country because he didn't want this to get out. But guess what? It got out anyhow. He might be trying the same exact thing because, as we know, he has been pushing for a no-fly zone. He has been pushing to get Assad out of power. And we know the United States government central bankers, they are behind all of this, along with UK, Israel, and other Arab nations. Now, we see there's a video out there, and of course, Site Intelligence brought this to our attention, and they never have links or they never explain where they got it. They just found it, and we can tell that this is another produced video of someone saying that, yes, they're going to kill me. This is a British-born American photojournalist, and he is saying that, that he fears for his life, and his name is Luke Summers. He's 33 years old, and he's basically been kidnapped in Yemen, and Al-Qaeda is out there saying that we have them and we're going to execute them. And we have to remember, the United States government central bankers need to get into each one of these countries. They need to get into Yemen, they need to get into Libya, they need to get into Lebanon, they need to, the fighting's going on in Lebanon right now. They're already in Iraq, and right now, they already have a bill, which is now law, where they can go after Al-Qaeda. And they're using Al-Qaeda because the puppet government pretty much is falling apart there. The people are taking back the country, and they would love to bring forces into this area. And this is why we're starting to see this being fanned up at this time. Now, there are more airstrikes in Libya. It looks like forces who are allies to the government that really doesn't exist now. And I'm going to say that these hits are really coming most likely from Saudi Arabia or Kuwait or other Arab nations in the area. They're flying in, hitting them, and then flying out. And they're saying that, yes, it is from forces allied to one or two rival governments in Libya that are hitting these areas. And I'm going to say it was probably from an outside force coming in, trying to give the advantage back to the puppet government, which really doesn't even exist anymore in the country. But we know that the United States government central bankers need to get back into Libya. They need to bring troops into there. And right now, they are saying that the Islamic State group has set up training camps in eastern Libya. Although they are not well developed, the U.S. is watching them closely. And this is coming from the senior U.S. general. Army General David Rodriguez said that there may be a couple of hundred fighters undergoing training at the sites, but details are kind of sketchy at this point. Now, we understand that Turkey, the United States government, central bankers, they want to set up a no-fly zone. And they tried to use the story that the Islamic State captured jets. They're learning how to fly them. And, of course, Assad came along and destroyed the jets. And that story completely fell apart. Now what they're doing is they are saying that the Islamic State militants have launched an attack overnight on a major military base in eastern Syria to pretty much eliminate the last significant government outpost in the extremist-dominated region. The airfield just outside the city of Deir el-Zor is a key military facility for Assad, giving his warplanes a hub from which to bomb the Islamic State. And we can see right now, the United States government central bankers directs the Islamic State where to go. They want to hit each one of the air bases. This way the United States can come in and bomb them in this area, destroy the air bases. This would set up a no-fly zone in the area because there'd be no air bases to use, and this is exactly their strategy they're using at this point in time. Now, in Iraq, we understand that there are troops there. Of course, they call them advisors, but they're combat-ready Marines. There's about 3,000 plus. I'm going to say there's more there, but they're giving us the number of about 3,000 or so. And we can see right now they would love to get more troops in this area. They've already set it up. They set up an air base. They commandeered an air base in Iraq. They took it over. They set up a division headquarters that can support up to 30,000 soldiers. And the only thing that was missing, and this is why the troops were removed from Iraq, because the United States government was working with Maliki, setting up a bilateral security agreement which would give our soldiers immunity for doing battle inside of Iraq. Just like in Afghanistan, they wanted Karzai to sign this agreement. Also, he didn't want to do this, so they had to withdraw the troops. But now, since the new prime minister was elected, the president or leader was elected in Afghanistan, that agreement was signed so the troops can remain and more can be added. Well, right now, the new ambassador to Iraq says his government has come to an agreement with Baghdad, and the privileges and immunities for the U.S. troops based in the country are now assured, which means they're going to sign this document, which means now the troops can flow into Iraq. Boots on the ground are now guaranteed. They worked it out. And prior to this, they had Joe Biden going in there back in 2011. They tried to deal with Maliki, and this is the reason why the troops had to leave Iraq. Maliki didn't want them there whatsoever. He was not going to sign the agreement, so all troops had to be removed. Now, we're seeing a lot of propaganda coming out, and we see that they're getting ready to really push an event. We understand they have propaganda of Russia cyber attacking the United States, of China cyber attacking and cyber espionage on the United States. We understand the Syrian Electronic Army, they're using that propaganda. And again, they're bringing in pretty much all the same players, and now Iran. Now, it's strange because the U.S. government and many other countries are in talks with Iran, which is the P5+1 talks about peace, but we see the propaganda continually coming out. Iranian hackers have infiltrated some of the world's top energy, transport, and infrastructure companies over the past 2 years in a campaign that could allow them to eventually cause physical damage, according to U.S. cybersecurity firms. Aerospace firms, airports, airliners, universities, energy firms, hospitals, telecommunication operators based in the United States, Israel, China, Saudi Arabia, India, Germany, France, England have been hit by the campaign, the research firm said, without naming individual companies. The 87-page report comes as governments scramble to better understand Iran's cyber capabilities, which researchers say have grown rapidly as Tehran seeks to retaliate for Western cyber attacks on its nuclear program. We believe that if the operation is left to continue unabated, it is only a matter of time before the team impacts the world's physical safety. So they're already bringing in Iran into this. That could be a key player in bringing down the power infrastructure and the economic and the financial institutions to pretty much destroy the economy. And we know this is all going to be done, and it's going to be done from the inside, not from any of these countries, but they will blame these countries to cover up the entire collapse. They don't want it to be blamed on them. They want it to be blamed on another country. Now, to go a step further, the Intelligence News reported that the European Center for Information Policy and Security cybersecurity network has determined that the Islamic State is using malware to capture government computer information hidden in the online videos released by the Islamic State. This could have infected and compromised several international agencies when downloading the Islamic State content. The malware can be hidden in videos or pictures content and could go undetected for several months. The real danger is that the Islamic State clearly has the prowess to execute cyber attacks in a tactical way. So basically what they're doing is they are letting us know that the Islamic State, Iran, Russia, North Korea, China, Syria, all have the ability to knock out the power grid, bring down the financial institutions, destroy the economy here, and we can see at this point they're getting ready for the next major event. They're using this, they're continually letting us know that this is a great huge possibility that it's going to be one of these countries. They don't want to leave anyone out here because all the players are the same. Like I said, all those countries that are not with the private Western central banks, who are separating themselves from the US dollar, who are pushing away from it and trying to introduce their own reserve currency, their own banking system. These are the countries that will be the enemies of the private Western central bank countries. This is the countries we will be going to war with. And we can see already with that bill that was just passed with Russia, we are on our way. And this is why everyone has to be prepared. You have to take precautions, because when the event does occur, the lights will go out. Now, will it go out all across the country at the same time? No, they're going to hit major cities in different locations, probably not all at once, because they need the systems to stay on so people's talk president can make a announcement over the system where he's set up, where all he has to do is flick it on, and he can broadcast across the country on all the radio stations, on all the TV stations, all at once. And we'll see power go out in different areas. We will see the financial institutions get hit, the stock market, bats, NASDAQ, banks. They will all be shut down, will be under capital controls. People will not be able to get their money out. They will say, these countries brought our economy to its knees. We will then have to monetize the entire system here, and the Fed will step in. They will start creating money once again, but it will be an overdrive right now because the countries across the sea will be dumping the dollar because they realize war is coming, and things will start to crash. Things will start to fall. The market will fall. NASDAQ will fall. Everything will start to fall apart. People will lose jobs. There will be people on the street looking for supplies, raiding the supermarkets, trying to get everything they possibly can. The first couple of months are going to be the toughest because people are not going to understand what is going on, and they're going to try to hoard as much as they possibly can. And if they can, they will break into homes once they become desperate enough. And this is why every single person needs to be prepared. Listen, everyone, thanks a lot for listening. Be well, be safe, and especially be prepared. Thanks a lot.